From R.D. Smothers Wealth Management, this is The Retirement.
When you retire, if you want an exciting life, you need a boring investment strategy.
Matters.
If you enter into retirement without a plan for income, you're not retired, you're simply unemployed.
Podcast.
Hey, this is your host, Dale Smothers, and you're listening to the Retirement Matters Podcast. My hope is that you will find the information you need in every single show on how to do one of the three things: either saving more money more efficiently, planning better for your future where you can live in retirement worry-free, or my favorite, how you can live a happy and fulfilled life in this life you have been given. We know that your time is valuable, and we appreciate you spending it listening to this episode of the Retirement Matters Podcast. Welcome to this exclusive podcast episode where it's just me and you talking only if you have access to the audio version of the podcast. This is not on our video version of the podcast. It's never hit the radio waves. This is just us late at night. I'm in studio right now trying to piece together what we call an evergreen show, which we don't do many of. We don't do many shows that rerun, not on this podcast, not on our radio show, not anywhere do we ever really rerun shows. But the last couple of weeks has been very, very busy around the office between client appreciation events, which you may have actually been involved in. We have been back and forth to New York on studio with Fox Business multiple times. It's just been a very busy couple of weeks. And for that reason, I haven't been able to really do much of the broadcasting that we usually do. So as I'm piecing together and finalizing this show for this week, and I'm sitting here in studio on the 22nd, which is a Monday, and I am recording, or I guess piecing together in this case, the show that will air on the 27th, I believe it is. Yeah, my phone is dead, so I'm looking at the computer. I think it's the 27th is when this show will be airing. And so what I want to do is on the 26th, I want to go ahead and publish this podcast. Now, this particular podcast that you're going to get, hopefully has hit on the 26th. I believe that's when the marketing team puts this out on Fridays. And when it drops, you're going to be an entire week without our show because we'll have nothing to fill in the spot. We typically will publish the show about a week after it has aired live across all the stations that we're on. We have stations that air on Saturday, some on Sunday, and some on Monday. And then the podcast version typically drops on Friday. We have had exclusive content in the past for podcasters, but nothing quite like this. So we'll see how this goes. If you like this, please let me know, because this is more just me and you. It's not shared for the radio audience. So where we are in the markets right now, if you're listening to this, you're seeing all-time high after all-time high be hit. Again, this is Monday. We just saw an announcement. This is the 22nd of September. We just saw an announcement by NVIDIA, and they're essentially investing a lot of money into companies like OpenAI. They're also investing into companies like Applied Digital or CoreWeave. And these companies are continuing to bid higher in spite of their own valuations maybe not being justifiable. They're also likely not justifiable if you look at the balance sheets. It's all speculation. And while that is very exciting for my young listeners, and specifically people in their 30s and 40s, which I fall in that group, it's very exciting for us that are growing our money in the growth phase. It's not as exciting for a retiree because if you're building a retirement plan correctly, you're likely not seeing your accounts grow nearly as much as some of these AI companies. I mean, we've got companies like CoreWeave that are up 200+% for the year. And if you're looking at your account and you've made 5 to 10, you may think that you're really lagging. But I want to give you some solace here, and I want to give you a little bit of perspective. At the end of the day, it's not about how much money you make in retirement. It's about how much money of that about how much of that money, rather, that you get to keep. And if you're not careful, by having these high-flying stocks, you may end up not getting to keep nearly as much for multiple reasons. One in particular is short-term capital gains. So if you made a 10% rate of return in just a matter of days and you sold, you're going to pay a capital gains rate that would be equivalent to your income taxes. If you hold that particular stock for at least one full year, your capital gains rate has a chance of being zero. Likely 15% would be the highest cap gain that you would see unless you're a high income earner. And then even at that, you are paying a maximum of 20%. Getting your gains at capital gains rates that are 0 to 15% are very lucrative for you in the long run. And again, the equivalent of that, if you're at a high income earner, for instance, if you made 10% and you had to pay 40% of that in taxes, by the time you get done with state and federal, maybe even 45 or 50% of that in taxes, now you're talking about having only earned 5% compared to someone who maybe is paying zero. And I'm using some analogies here or some examples. If you're paying zero capital gains on that same 10%, you have earned more just because of the way you're taxing the money. Now, comparing that to 200%, that math doesn't add up. It doesn't hold water. I would much rather have 200% and pay 50% tax than to pay no tax on 10% any day. But what we can't do is go out risking our money to try and earn 200% in a year, because that 200% is on the backs of a lot of volatility. CoreWeave is a great example. We have a long-term growth portfolio that we have a little bit of CoreWeave in. For younger clients at RD Smothers Wealth Management, we are putting them into companies like CoreWeave and NVIDIA and Palantir and a lot of tech companies, AI-based companies. But CoreWeave had just came off of nearly a 60% drop from its peak to its trough in just a matter of days. Nearly 60%. This type of portfolio is not anything we can build an income stream off of, nor should you need this type of return if you have built a portfolio correctly over the last 3, 4, or 5 decades before retirement. So when I think about this AI boom and the fear of missing out, if you will, FOMO, that it may give a retiree, it really makes me fearful that some retirees might go seeking returns or chasing returns that they have no business chasing. Kind of reminds me of Samson, rather, different Bible character. Samson that was chasing something he had no business in chasing, and at the end of the day, it cost him quite a bit. This is where we want to be very prudent in our returns. And this is why RD Smothers Wealth Management has the risk-on, risk-off portfolio, because in the risk-on position, we can take as much risk as you desire. As long as we know that that risk-off position has the next 5 to 10 years worth of income sitting there in case the market actually takes a dip. This allows us to construct a portfolio for retirees in a way that they can participate in the upside of the market, but still have significant downside protection. We talk about this all the time. So what should you be doing then if you are close to retirement? If you're listening to this and maybe you are, say, 50 years old, not quite 59, which is that golden age we like to talk about, 59 and a half. If you're 50 and you have your IRA, let's say you're 10 to 15 years away from retirement. If it were me, I would be rebalancing this portfolio right now at these high valuations, taking full advantage of where you are in the market, maybe reintroducing a little bit of fixed income into your positions, and taking the positions that have bid higher, significantly higher at that, most likely, making them rebalanced into a 60-40 or thereabout percentage of your portfolio, 60% in equities, 40% in fixed income. I would keep all of my fixed income in the domestic sector. I would not have that exposed to international risk. And I also wouldn't be looking at high-yielding bonds right now for several reasons, but mostly for default risk alone. And I would also have my domestic equity position be the lion's share, if not all of, the equities that I hold. I'm a big proponent of, as America goes, so goes the global market. And for that reason, we're not really hunting international equity exposure right now. If I were 30 years old, I would likely be mostly all in the S&P 500 or some of the most aggressive funds that my 401k could have. Especially if at 30 years old, I am also needing some cash flow to make my family work. I'm growing my family, and I'm only saving, say, 10% of my salary, but my company is matching 5% of my salary. I want to give you a real quick piece of information here. This is really handy for you to maybe consider how much risk you can actually stomach. Because if you were in that scenario where you're putting 10% and your employer's putting 5%, well, in theory, if let's just say you were to put $100 in, then they would be putting in $50. If 10% was 100 and 5% was 50, I hope you're following the math, you now have $150 at your disposal. Well, that $150, in theory, could lose as much as 33% in the market, and you would still have your $100 that you saved. This gives a significant amount of downside appetite for that money, meaning we could theoretically, and I say that word theoretically because it won't feel good, but in theory and in math, even in practice, we could lose nearly 33% of our portfolio and still have every dollar that we put in there to begin with. So go hunting with that money, especially in your 30s and probably even in your 40s. As you enter into your 40s, I would likely creep just a little bit of fixed income in. And as you go through your 40s and into your 50s, as I said, I would start getting closer to that 60-40 balance. As you get into your 59, maybe 60-year-old point, now's the time to start looking at IRAs. These IRAs are likely going to provide you a lot more flexibility and control over your money, making sure that you can actually start to build something that resembles the risk-on, risk-off approach. You see, in 2022, even bond funds or fixed income, as I referred to them earlier, lost a significant amount of money, nearly 20% down. While the S&P 500 was down 20%, so was your bond fund. And as a result, a balanced portfolio by all other senses of the word was still down as much as a all equity portfolio. This hasn't happened much in the history, but the correlation between stocks and bonds remains fairly tight. And for that reason, I would urge you at 59.5 to begin looking at what we call in-service rollovers into IRAs if that option is allowed to you, even if you elect to stay employed at your employer. And the way we do that is by doing an in-service rollover with the money you've already made into something that's a little bit more safe and secure. You can then become very aggressive with your 401k. And again, I've said this many times, the 401k is a very, very good growth product, not a very good income-based product. And for that reason, as you approach income phase at 59.5, and you have that flexibility, exercise it. Now, I'm going to end it here. And we haven't done a normal pause for positivity, and we haven't done all of the fluff of the radio show. But this has been a very quick and to the point, let's call it a guide through retirement now, September the 22nd of 2025. Depending on where you are in the journey, you need to be looking at rebalancing your portfolio. Sit down with someone who can help you in the phase that you are in, and be sure you are sticking to the plan no matter what comes your way. If you're 20, 30, or 40, be sure you've got your defense in place. This is your life insurance, your disability insurance, and your health insurance. If there's anything that we can do to assist you here at R.D. Smothers Wealth Management, feel free to give us a call. 270-600-PLAN. We would love an opportunity to sit down with you at any time to begin the discussion or to help you land the proverbial airplane into this safe retirement runway. We are here to assist, and our entire team is standing by. Again, 270-600-PLAN, or you can navigate to our website, rdswealth.com. Simply click on schedule a visit, and we would be happy to sit down with you at a time that's convenient for you to begin working on the retirement that will fulfill you. Now, with that out of the way, I think I'm going to wrap it up with one quick statement, and that is that if you are an avid listener of the podcast and you have heard this show, this is a very exclusive show. Again, it's not going to hit anywhere else on the airwaves. It's just me and you talking. I would love it if you could give us an honest review, give us a thumbs up, a like, whatever it is on the podcast streaming service of your choice, because it helps us get our message out to more people. And I would even welcome you to send me an email personally, dale@rdswealth.com. Again, dale@rdswealth.com. That'll land in my inbox. Either myself or my assistant will see that email, and I'll personally reply back to you, letting you know that I thank you for the listen, and I would love to hear your feedback on this episode, a very quick, short, to-the-point podcast episode that we could certainly do more often if it is resonating with our listeners. This, in addition to the radio show, would give us the content that we need to truly navigate retirement and reach that destination safely. One more time, just so you are in the know, this particular podcast episode will be the last for, I guess, one full week. We'll be 1 week off of schedule, unless I'm able to find time to get something out very similarly to this one next week. We're going to end it here, but you know I can't end it without our normal tagline. So until we talk again, always remember to save money, plan well, and live happy in retirement. God bless.
Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal. Any references to protection, safety, or lifetime income generally refer to fixed insurance products, never securities or investments. Insurance guarantees are backed by the financial strength and claims paying abilities of the issuing carrier. This radio show is intended for informational purposes only. It is not intended to be used as the sole basis for financial decisions, nor should it be construed as advice designed to meet the particular needs of an individual situation. R.D. Smothers Wealth Management is not permitted to offer, and no statement made during this show shall constitute tax or legal advice. Our firm is not affiliated with or endorsed by the U.S. government or any governmental agency. The information and opinions contained herein provided by third parties have been obtained from sources believed to be reliable, but accuracy and completeness cannot be guaranteed by R.D. Smothers Wealth Management.